This video is sponsored by you. Links for the channel are in the description, along with the Discord. Hello there, Arknights' most hated YouTuber here, once again hitting you over the head with a bedtime story. Picture the following scenario. You are a slightly smarter player than you are right now, and you are enjoying using all the classics, the Arknights' greatest hits, Eblana, Stainless Arknights, Ebenholz, that Siege Alter, and Chinchilla, and finally, Yuri Queen Saki-chan and her army of 5 stars, whose sole purpose for existing is expanding her range and nothing else. These operators all have unique fun mechanics that make their kit stand out and give new layers to their gameplay, which are actually very fun to engage with, be it Eblanana's Star Platinum and Television's Skill 2 mechanics, Stainless Arknights turrets, and so on. However, you may notice with your big wet eyes, these operators are often not the first suggestion when it comes to role recommendations, or the second, or the third for that matter, or in Ebenholz's case, perhaps not even the 54th. This, aside from 2 exceptions we will discuss later, is a pattern in Arknights. Operators with unique gimmicks and fun layers to their gameplay tend to be a cut below those considered meta. It is not a coincidence. And before you say it, no, it's not because the EN players are lazy. I hear that way too much. There's actual reasons for it. I also want to specify this video is not just bashing these operators, or saying this is a problem that needs to be fixed. Refer to this video. The fact these unique, fun but subpar operators exist is part of why Arknights is such a good game. These operators should exist in their current states. I would not change anything about them. I just aim to have a game design discussion here, to merely explain the why of this phenomenon. So, what is Arknights about? I don't mean the story. We all know that it's just a cycle of suffering over and over with some lesbians thrown in. I mean the gameplay. What is the gameplay of Arknights about? And I mean that in its absolute most bare-bone fundamentals. Excluding modes like Reclamation Algorithm or Footy, at its root, independently of any event mechanic or enemy gimmick, Arknights is about not letting the bad guys trademark enter the blue box trademark. At its most fundamental core, this is what all of Arknights ultimately comes down to. And there is only a finite number of ways you can achieve that. You can outright... You can slow them, or you can block them. Of course, there is also support roles, one being medics and buffers, keeping the other 3 roles alive or making them more effective, while the other is DP generation, getting the other 4 roles out on the field in the first place. Ultimately, even if there is 1 degree of separation, we always circle back to the one main purpose at the root of everything. Therefore, every single operator in the game contributes to this one purpose in one of the 5 ways established or more. This is why Eblana, Entelechia, and many others fall short, because fundamentally they are doing the same thing as many other operators, with the exception that they have to play minigames for it. No matter the gimmick, no matter the unique mechanic, they will all, without fail, end up in one or more of these 5 categories. Sure, you could play Eblana minigames to get a mega powerful summon, but that achieves the same fundamental purpose as a lane holder with self-sustain. This is why Tilopsis is still the best SP battery in the game, for example. You put her down and now everyone charges 30% faster, unlike Stainless, who needs his turrets, Mustumi, who only does it for a certain class, and Liskarm, who needs enemies with high attack speed and low damage to really shine. It's Occam's razor. The best solution is often the one with the least assumptions, or rewarded for Arknights, the best operators are those with the least steps between their deployment and what you wish for them to achieve. But why is that the case? Well, it's simply because the more steps you add to achieve something, the more that thing needs to be worth the effort. And when ultimately everyone falls into the same 5 categories, you will find that the least steps to get there, the better it will be, because ultimately you are adding a bunch of steps to do the same thing that others do with less. Of course, this will not be true every time for every operator in every circumstance. Blanket statements are all false 99% of the time, but it is true for the vast majority of cases. And of course, the 5 roles I showed here are meant to be very general and broad. Sometimes you need something far more specific, which is where niches come into play. But ultimately, situations in which you need those niches are just situations with stricter requirements to achieve these same 5 things. So let's examine some meta operators to see if this Occam's razor adjacent rule is true. We have Ulpianus, who is just a huge ball of stats with a healing talent, Haruka, who makes everyone effectively immortal with sheer healing per second and Sanctuary, or Monstre with her buffs, or Muinar, Lemwen and Wishadel straight up dealing enough damage to destroy a small country. These are all the most direct and blunt version of each gimmick that involves the least steps between deployment and vaporizing the enemy. This rule is true for every meta operator, with few exceptions. Keep that in mind, as we will discuss said exceptions later. Now that it is later, I believe there are only 2 exceptions in the entire game to this rule, those being Exia Alter and Tragodia, and it is curious to note they are both very recent units, as if Hypergriff just now figured out how to make cool and fun gimmicks actually meta. What they figured out is to make those cool and fun gimmicks actually unique, as in irreplaceable. And in all fairness, this is way harder than it sounds. There is a reason this was only achieved in year 7. Especially when everything in the game ultimately comes down to the same 5 roles, it is hard to come up with something truly new. And really, even Exia and Tragodia still fall in those 5. Exia Alter has a summon that redeploys ground operators, ignoring their redeployment timer, and this has more viable uses on its own than Texas has in her. And Exia is one of them. We range from respawning operators that died to repositioning operators instantly half across the map like a ender pearl, to using operators like Sutra and Nurl twice, to generating DP somehow with penance, and most importantly, getting to use skills twice in a row, as this redeployment gives back all the initial SP. Tragodia lets you toss a cat onto the field to manipulate enemy pathing, and deal a bunch of damage too while he's at it, being easily the best crowd control in the entire game, and finally dethroning that chameleon I hate. Enemy displacement is insanely powerful, and something that Hypergriff dabbled in with Nymph skill 2 and U skill 2. Tragodia is just the definitive version of it, albeit not the most straightforward one. These operators have several steps between their deployment and what you want them to do, and yet Exialter literally rivals Wishadel on the tier lists, and Tragodia is right behind. So what is the difference between them and Eblana or Entelephon Pole? Well, going back to what I said before, what Tragodia and Exialter do is worth the steps to get there, because there is no direct comparison, and because they are extremely powerful and truly unique effects, while Eblana and others are merely different. What I mean by that is that yes, they play differently, they have unique mechanics, but at the end of the day, they don't actually do anything new. They are just different from the previous operators to be different. This is something that can be observed in other games too, like Plants vs Zombies 2, that hollowed out shell of a game. The prime example of this is Sakiko from the Ave Mujica collab, and I know this is risky ground to tread. The Saki-chan fans are whose favorite method of communication is hurling bricks through windows, but seriously read her kit. In order, she attacks continuously with offensive recharge, has a musical note mechanic, a fever mode mechanic which has a gauge of its own, a range extension mechanic with her lesbian polycule, skill activation mechanics like Leto, 2 modes on skill 2, piano and harp, an organ mode on skill 3, this bitch got different styles like Kazuma Kiryu, smart targeting on her split damage, and finally an immortality mechanic, because of course she has one. That is 10 mechanics, gauges or modes, all crammed into one kit, that give several layers to her gameplay. And at the end of the day, she's still just a DPS that ignores enemy stats. Again, I want to specify, I'm not saying she's bad, she's definitely better than Thorns, and good riddance, it's been 4 years by now. What I am saying is that as good as she is, she's nothing new. The point here is that they stuffed her full of cool and unique mechanics, but in the end, the sum of all of them still ended up not being truly unique. And again, I am not necessarily saying this is a bad thing. For a lot of players, having all of these mechanics to play with and keep track of is what makes Arknights fun. It's engaging with the gameplay rather than just pressing a button and the game plays itself for you. So, while it is a game design truth that simpler operators tend to be better in the vast majority of cases, in the specific context of Arknights, these operators should exist as they contribute to why the game is so good. Arguably, despite not being meta, Sakiko is one of the best designed operators in the game. I'm still not gonna roll, but anyway, that's all. Max out your Gummy, bye. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the outro. I am still recovering from the recent YouTube algorithm changes with the AI filters that remove 3/4 of your channel. If you haven't checked, make sure restricted mode is turned off on your account. If you live in a country where you can't turn it off, get a VPN. Proton VPN and Mulvad VPN are free. In any case, wow, it sure doesn't completely ruin my mood and motivation to know that anything I put out is going to perform really poorly, including this video. I'm pretty sure this video is gonna do pretty bad view-wise. In any case, though, thank you to the members on screen right now. Raditz, Good Old Leon, Artjack, Living Shad, Apollo T, QX10, Boreaz, Mr. Laird, Tanimal Raptor, Seishin, Joseph D, Zephyrinix, Nubo, Lizard King, Nemotic, Nerdrage, Andre Mule, Maxiosess, Kevin McQuire, Larmendra, Shimali, Unyunuk, Yavunessia, The King of Harems, Jigster, That Guy with Two Names, Lightnero, Cromchandle, JJF, and Bozidar. In times like these, memberships are so much more important, so thank you all.